I'm Elena Nahum Leroy. I'm the owner of ArtMaterials.ca, and I'm here for the True North Country Comic Podcast.
Welcome to the True North Country Comics Podcast, dedicated to promote Canadian comic book and graphic novel creators and supporters. I'm John Swinimer. On this episode, I chat with Elena Nahum Leroy, owner of ArtMaterials.ca, about tools for comic book artists in Canada. Please like and subscribe to this website by hitting the subscribe button so you'll be notified about new podcast interviews and article posts. This podcast is available wherever podcasts are enjoyed. Please like, follow, and subscribe. Residing in Quebec, Elena started her path as an artist 20 years ago in realism with classical mediums, pencils, watercolour, and oil. However, she wanted to challenge herself, so she moved on to surrealistic impressionism in her oil and whimsical collages and paintings in her mixed media art. Her current style combines whimsy, vibrant colours, and traditional elements with a unique twist, resulting in a modern vintage aesthetic. If you love Alice in Wonderland, you'll understand Elena's world in full. Elena is also the owner of ArtMaterials.ca. ArtMaterials.ca is a small art supplies business, family-owned and operated in Canada since 2011. While they're not a franchise company with millions of dollars of investments, they do share and contribute a lot to the community and different charities. With their art supplies, Materials.ca supports programs for children in need, children with neurodiversity, art communities, and educational programs. The business offers made-in-Canada art supplies free from harsh chemicals with no compromise in quality. Handmade in Canada in small batches by Elena, her paints and mediums improve in quality with every batch. For shipping, ArtMaterials.ca uses carbon-neutral delivery, and the packaging materials are free from new plastic. Plus, they reuse all plastic wrapping materials received with orders from distributors. So, without further ado, here's my chat with Elena Nahum Leroy, owner of ArtMaterials.ca, about tools for comic book artists in Canada. So, Elena, thank you very much for taking time to chat with me.
Thank you for inviting me.
I appreciate your time. Before we get going with all the questions, I would like to know, what was the first comic book that you read?
So that's technically a long story because I'm from USSR, and all comic stories and all comic books, they're totally different from what we have here. So most comic stories that I was a child back then, so they were published in magazine. It's called Murzilka. I'm sure you don't know about that, never heard about that, but you can Google it. So they were quite funny. And so we didn't have full stories of comic books, unfortunately, just different culture, different, let's say, the stream. So everything has to be edited and controlled by government. And that's the only children comics were kind of fun to read, because whatever was written for adults, it was mostly propaganda and a lot of political things. So that's why I'm not that into comic book art, because of this long story. Yes.
It's quite unique.
So you're not going to hear from me some famous names, and so we can discuss. No.
Very good. Well, thank you for explaining that. I guess this is the one time only where I've heard someone say that comic books turn them off from continuing that profession. So that's quite unique. And speaking of that, maybe you could describe a little bit about what you do. What is your profession now?
So originally I have a master's degree in finance. And so when I started in Russia, it was in this field. But after I moved to Canada in 2009, I completely changed the path and I turned into art industry. So I was learning for 5 years art in Russia. And so after I moved here, I decided to do this path. So at first I was teaching art lessons and still doing so. And in art lessons, I technically taught a lot of students doing comic art. So I am in that, and some of them entered universities and graduated and now do art, for in gaming industry and so on. So just designing characters too. So I am there, but from the other side, from a creator side. So that's what my one thing that I started with. But with COVID, I had to shut down because all we were shut down for public. And I started developing my own line of art supplies, experimenting with pigments, with ingredients. And now I'm running an online shop, ArtMaterials.ca. I'm still teaching, but much less. So I'm just everything in ArtMaterials.ca, from managing, accounting, creator, formulator, everything, different hats.
Very good. Well, maybe you could describe a little bit more about what ArtMaterials.ca does, or what do they offer?
So when I started it, I was focusing on bringing alternative art materials to Canada because our market, I found it very expensive and unaffordable in many ways. And that's how I started. I just bring in from Europe different art supplies. But when COVID happened, that's when technically I started working more on art materials business than on teaching. So I started developing my own line of watercolors, first of all, and then oil mediums, and so on. Now I'm offering on top of the what you can and cannot find in other art supply shops. I'm offering my own production line made here with my hands. Yeah, so that's what is that about. So I hope in the future to offer more, because developing of any product takes years. So to test, to see how they perform with the time.
What is your most popular product that you offer?
So generally from the stores, I see that's generally watercolors, the main product. People prefer different brands. So that's if we talk about different brands, so the most popular is American brand Daniel Smith. It's everywhere now. And from people who buy from me, they buy watercolors and pens. That's my main product line there. And I offer some pigments that none of the other companies have in their line. So because I'm a big experimenter, so bring absolutely rare and probably never used pigments in watercolors and test them and see how they perform just for fun.
Ah, very good. Now, I was reading on your website that you make a claim of trying to produce art supplies free of harsh chemicals.
Yes.
Is that something that's predominant in most art supplies today?
Yes. So unfortunately, this area, so what we really buy from art supplies, it's a very gray area because none of manufacturers disclose the list of ingredients. So we never know what we are buying. Yes, it's saying it's pigment and binder, and let's say binder, it's Arabic gum or linseed oil, or like depending on the kind of paint. However, we don't know what is used there as additives and as preservatives. So the main thing that's here, for example, if we talk about watercolor, we deal with water inside the paint. And as soon as there is water, there is a big risk of mold growth and other bacteria growth. So that's why we need to kill it. To kill it, we use preservatives. And many companies use very harsh, especially if it's watercolors in tubes, because there we have moist, right? So if in pans, it's kind of dry, semi-dry. So like in tubes, it's moist. And there's some formaldehydes can be used, a lot of chemicals, petroleum-based chemicals that's preserved. So art supplies made in Europe, they are not allowed by legislation to use harsh preservatives like formaldehyde in artistic paints, but paints made everywhere else, including Canada, US, China, of course, so like everywhere else, they may include, and we don't know about that. So I'm not using harsh chemicals. I'm using only food-grade preservative or essential oils as preservatives. And that's why it takes longer for me to test, because I need to make sure that mold is not going to grow there and free of harsh chemicals.
Ah, okay. Well, thanks for explaining that. I was also reading that you hand make your art supplies. Is that true? By hand?
Yes.
Wow.
By hands.
That must take a lot of time, isn't it?
It does. It does. I have a machine which brings the components together, because some modern pigments, which are called organic pigments, they cannot be, so they're so fine that hand pressure will never work for that. It's a joke. So they have to use some machine pressure, but it's basic machine, like 3-roller machine, when it just like roll and the paint goes between the metal drums. So that's the only kind of machine I'm using. Everything else is by hand. Also, when I'm producing my oil mediums, I just literally boil them in pots. And if I clean oil, like refine oil from scratch, I'm using oil, water, filtering this also manually, and then heat it up, and so on, all manually. So, and have manual pump. So just because it gives me control on what I am doing, I see it.
And you provide more than just the paint itself, right? You have other artistic tools that you offer for sale?
Yes. So I have paints, watercolors in pens. I have watercolor inks. So that's my new product. I have watercoloring tubes in testing mode now, so it will be released this year. So I don't have enough to offer, just have maybe 10 colors done. I need more. And I also have plenty of oil mediums that have zero turpentine or have zero white spirits, so any like toxic odors. So that's my also handmade line. Also brush cleaners for oil, also without any harsh chemicals, so it can be used indoors. And I also have some cleaning tools like brush cleaning soap, also made from scratch, and brush restorer for watercolor brushes. Little things that make this life better and don't contribute in the toxic environment, because most of artists, they work indoors in a smaller area, and we don't realize how much vapor we can get from commercial based art supplies.
Yeah, that's very true. No, that's something a lot of people don't think about. And then at the end of the day, they're going, why do I have a headache? And that's not good. That's not good. You mentioned off the top about the various people that you've educated and are using your supplies. Can I ask if you're selling products to any Canadian comic book or graphic novel creators that you know of?
I don't know, because I don't know who I'm selling to. I can't tell for sure. So who is buying that? So that's why I really don't know. I know that's a lot of people who work on models, like little figurines they painted on. So I have a lot of clients because they need special, they're very picky about the brush they want to have, about paint they want to have, about how to clean the brush, because brushes are expensive. So I'm more like aware of this part, but much less about comic book designers.
But it is possible people can order from all over from Canada for your products, and you ship them as well. That's another good thing that you do. One of the things that I originally had asked you about, and one of the things I saw, I was doing a guerrilla sort of research about art supplies, because students are now back in school, and I thought, gosh, what do they offer at the major outlets, Walmart, Michael's, and Staples? And I was very disappointed to find that all of them come from other parts of the world and not Canada. So I want to get sort of your feedback about why there aren't more Canadian-made art supplies available for sale in these major stores.
Yeah, that's a problem. So first of all, those major stores, they like originally American, right? So that's why they not own distributors, but how the chain works is a different way. So let me explain how it works from our side, from retailers. So we can buy in two ways to resell. So the same thing as any other retailer, even Walmart and Michael's, they technically do the same. So we can buy directly but from the company, but usually that's a small companies who don't have distributor. Most of big manufacturers, they have a distributor. And most of those companies have distributors based in US. And what's happening, if Michael's or Walmart wants to buy something, they go and see what this particular distributor has and can offer the best discount or whatever and get it. Most Canadian manufacturers, we have some very good ones. They don't have distributors at all, and dealing with them directly will not be that convenient and profitable for big retailers. So it's just like they have to buy like from every single individual company separately, not like from one hub. And that's a problem, because if the company is mid-size or smaller size, like I'm very small and other Canadian manufacturers usually smaller, not smaller than me, but I mean smaller than the big what brands you see in stores, they don't have distributor because they're unable to offer good discount. You know what I mean? So, for example, tube of paint has to cost, for example, $10 for the consumer. And to go through distributor, they will have to sell it for $3 or for $4 to distributor. So that means like discount is so huge that the companies that make products within Canada, they cannot do it. It will not cover the costs. That's the main reason.
That's unfortunate. Do you think maybe perhaps with our new government and the initiatives to buy Canadian, that perhaps something might change in the future?
It will change, I hope. It mostly depends on what people buy, because if people keep buying something that's not made in Canada, we can stock up with Canadian stuff, but it will never be sold, right? So that's the problem. So that starts with consumer, first of all. So if consumers will be strong to buy Canadian, we can make it. We can make it for sure. It will take time because any manufacturing takes time and it needs some facilities to be built. It needs investment into equipment and training staff and getting used to this equipment and so on. It takes time. It's not going to happen overnight or within a couple of years, definitely not. But in long term, yes, definitely. But it should start with the consumer.
So we got to get the message out, that's for sure. So speaking of that and trying to get the message out, where can people go online to find out more about your company and what you offer?
So they can go to my website, ArtMaterials.ca. So it's very easy to remember. And if they don't find some brands, even like made in Canada, are not still on my website. We are increasing stock, but slowly. So they can always email me and I can make it faster.
Very good. Well, Elena, those are all the questions I have for you, but is there something I didn't ask that you'd like to get across in this interview?
Just encourage people to buy more Canadian-made products because it's important to us. Unfortunately, and by at least within Canada, unfortunately, Canadian art supplies market is very small, and big companies, small companies don't consider our market as a separate market. They consider it as like a add-on to the US market, unfortunately. And that's how we even can't bring directly many brands to Canada. They go through the US. That's how we pay their duties. So, for example, Old Holland brand, it has distributor in the US only. So that means if I want to bring this brand to Canada, I have to pay American duties, I have to pay shipping here, and we have the price instead of going directly. That's the main thing, just be Canadian, support Canadian industries, buy made in Canada, or at least sold in Canada.
Thanks to Elena for the chat. You can discover more about Elena online at ELENANL.com and on Instagram at Elena Nahum Leroy. You can discover more about ArtMaterials.ca online and on Instagram at ArtMaterials.ca. And thank you for tuning in to the True North Country Comics podcast. I invite you to visit the True North Country Comics website to listen to even more conversations with creators about making comic books and graphic novels. I encourage you to visit the website so you'll be notified about new podcast interviews and article posts. This podcast is available wherever podcasts are enjoyed. Please like, follow, and subscribe. You can follow along True North Country Comics on most social media sites, and you're encouraged to send any and all feedback to John at TrueNorthCountryComics.com. Thanks for tuning in, and come back soon for another episode. Bye for now. True North Country Comics Podcast is copyright True North Country Comics, copyright 2025.